Billionaire's wife, threw the glass of water straight into the nurse's face. "You people don't deserve to touch my husband!" she screamed. The room froze, and in that silence, it felt like even God was watching. The setting was a luxurious, sterile sanctuary, the exclusive private wing of St. Jude's Medical Center. Here, wealth did not guarantee peace, only better acoustics for the incessant beep of monitors and the echo of silence. Here lay Mr. Victor Cortez, a titan of industry reduced to the quiet mercy of machines, tethered to life by tubes and wires. Amara, a young black nurse, moved through this environment like a shadow of grace. The smell of antiseptic and expensive polished marble was the scent of her daily trial. Before she ever placed a hand on the cool metal rail of Victor's bed, she would pause outside the door, her fingers habitually brushing the small obsidian cross resting against her collarbone. It was a gift from her late grandmother, not merely jewelry, but a tactile reminder of an unwavering presence. "He sees me," she would pray, a silent counter-argument to the world's indifference. "He sees when the world looks away, and he records the suffering and the sin." She believed this fiercely. Amara had been chosen for her extraordinary competence, her clinical detachment, and her reputation for unflappable calm. But what the hospital administration did not realize was that her calm was not a professional veneer. It was the bedrock of a defiant, enduring faith. The opposition arrived daily, punctual and potent, draped in what Amara privately called crimson armor. Claudia Cortez, Victor's wife, was a force of nature. Her wealth proclaimed not in whispers, but in the harsh reflection of diamonds that captured the cold LED light and threw it back like accusations. Her face, meticulously sculpted by time and fortune, rarely held an expression of concern for her husband, but always one of contempt for the staff. The contrast was immediate and jarring. The small obsidian cross on Amara's chest, a symbol of suffering love, stood against the glitter of Claudia's 6-carat ring, a testament to worldly power. Claudia found her sport in Amara. She saw the nurse's quiet dignity and immediately sought to dismantle it, focusing her malice like a laser beam. "Amara," Claudia drawled one Tuesday morning, pronouncing the name with the disdain one reserves for cheap, imported goods. "Did you ensure the linen was Egyptian cotton, or did we default to some scratchy polyester monstrosity from, what was it, that community college you boast about attending?" It was a calculated cut. Amara had worked 2 jobs to get her degree. Claudia dismissed it as a joke. Amara kept her gaze steady on the infusion pump. "The linen is standard, Mrs. Cortez, as per sanitation protocol. Mr. Cortez's vital signs are stable." "Oh, the vitals are always stable, aren't they, dear? What I require is class. Something your background, shall we say, fails to appreciate." Claudia circled the bed, her expensive heels clicking a predatory rhythm on the polished floor. "You seem to forget who you are addressing, nurse. You are a hired hand, a convenient accessory to my husband's illness. A servant's virtue is silence, and their opinion is a distraction." The words were designed to pierce the soul, to make Amara feel physically small and worthless. But Amara, in her quiet resistance, remembered her scripture. She had etched Romans 12:19 into the deepest parts of her mind, a spiritual anchor in the face of the storm. "Vengeance is mine, I will repay, saith the Lord." That verse was not a license for apathy. It was a profound act of delegation. She was delegating the fight to the only one strong enough to win it. The test of faith intensified. Claudia began manufacturing crises not for attention, but to force Amara into a position of error. One evening, Dr. Chen, the lead neurologist, was doing rounds. Victor's heart rate suddenly spiked, triggering an immediate sharp alarm. Amara moved with the precision of a trained instrument, adjusting the medication drip, calibrating the ventilator, all while speaking low, soothing words to the unconscious man. In less than 60 seconds, the monitor settled back into a rhythmic hum. Dr. Chen, a man known for his frosty demeanor, actually nodded to Amara in genuine respect before quietly exiting. It was a moment of unambiguous professional victory, and that was precisely when Claudia struck. She emerged from the adjacent sitting room, not even looking at the monitors. Honestly, Amara, that noise is simply unacceptable. You must learn to anticipate these little technical difficulties, she snapped, smoothing the silk of her robe. And tell me, did you remember to repress the call button for the attendant? Your focus seems a bit scattered. Perhaps all that reading you do, what is it? The Bible? Is clouding your clinical judgment. The insult wasn't the attack on her competence, but the deliberate attempt to ridicule the source of her strength. It was a calculated blasphemy. Amara looked at the monitor, then at Claudia, her lips pressed into a thin, determined line. The silence of the room was heavy, broken only by the steady beep, beep, beep of Victor's life. Amara realized that Mr. Cortez was not merely a passive patient, he was a silent witness. Day after day, he lay there, hearing every cruel word, every mocking tone, unable to intercede. His silence felt like a crushing weight, the ultimate test of Amara's conviction that justice would prevail even when the powerful are paralyzed. The true climax arrived a few days later. Claudia, bored with mere insults, decided to stage a spiritual execution. She had invited a junior nurse, a physical therapist, and even the hospital administrator, Mr. Davies, under the guise of an important discussion about Victor's care. In reality, they were a captive audience. Claudia was magnificent in her cruelty. She spoke of Amara's inherent unsuitability, her limited intellectual ceiling, and the crass vulgarity of her religious tokenism. It's almost a comedy, isn't it? Claudia chuckled, a cold, brittle sound. This girl, with her little trinket, acting like she has some connection to the divine when she can barely afford the bus fare home. Faith is a luxury, my dear, not a uniform. Then came the final soul-crushing demand. Claudia approached Amara, her eyes glittering with malicious triumph. I need you to say it, Amara, right now. Look at everyone here and admit what you are. Say, I am unworthy of this room, unworthy of respect, and my life is less valuable than yours. The demand hung in the air, a spiritual assault. Amara stood still, the years of quiet endurance threatening to crumble. She looked at Mr. Davies, who fidgeted and stared at his shoes. She looked at the junior nurse, whose face was a mask of fear. Everyone chose self-preservation. Everyone chose silence. Tears, hot and sudden, finally streamed down Amara's face. The pressure of the world's scorn, the weight of God's perceived silence, became unbearable. She didn't look at Claudia. She looked beyond her, toward the bright, unforgiving window, and she spoke, her voice a barely audible whisper, yet perfectly clear. quoting the ultimate act of humility. "May God forgive you, Mrs. Cortez, for you do not know what you are doing." The air immediately thickened. The room went silent, a profound ringing silence that swallowed the beep, beep, beep of the monitor. The words were not an accusation. They were a benediction of grief and a mirror reflecting Claudia's soul. It was a direct echo of Christ's plea on the cross, Luke 23:34, an act of profound spiritual authority that transcended their stations. The witnesses, frozen in their shame, felt the icy touch of their own cowardice. In that absolute stillness, when the human spirit seemed broken and the divine seemed absent, a deep, resonant voice cut through the air. Enough! The word was not shouted, it was the command, heavy with the gravity of a man who rarely spoke, but whose words held the power to reshape institutions. Every head snapped toward the bed. Victor Cortez, the man they thought was weak, perhaps comatose, certainly oblivious, was awake. His eyes, clear and sharp, were fixed not on his wife, but on the small obsidian cross gleaming on Amara's chest. Just then, a sudden, blinding shaft of late afternoon sunlight broke through the high-rise windows. It didn't just illuminate the room, it seemed to focus, tracing the lines of the window frame, creating the unmistakable image of a cross that lay across Victor's bed and bathed Amara in light. It was a sign not of a sudden miracle cure, but of a presence finally making itself known. The Lord had heard the silent prayer and answered the spoken benediction. Victor struggled to speak, his voice rasping but gaining strength with every word. "I was silent," he began, his gaze piercing Claudia. "I was silent because I needed to see who you truly were when you thought I couldn't bear witness. But today I have seen enough." He pushed himself higher against the pillows, his effort momentous. "I heard every word. The insults to this woman's character, her education, her soul. Her silence was not weakness. It was a strength you, Claudia, have never possessed. It was a form of worship." He turned his attention to the cowering Mr. Davies and the others. "You, too, chose silence. You chose to value your position over human decency." Victor then gave the verdict, a quiet, devastating decree that shattered Claudia's world far more effectively than any financial ruin. "Amara has not just cared for me with skill, but with a heart that knows God. A heart full of true charity and grace. You, Claudia, have forgotten him long ago, replacing reverence with arrogance and compassion with cruelty." Claudia staggered back, the crimson armor seeming to lose its sheen. Her power was derived from him, and now he had revoked the source. Victor continued, speaking directly to the administrator. "Mr. Davis, this hospital was built on my family's funds, on the principle of healing and respect. I hereby declare, effective immediately, if any staff member, administrator, or family member treats another soul as less than human, if they forget the simple respect that God demands of all of us, the funding stops. Instantly. Period. The foundation of this place must be honor, not hierarchy." The witnesses, previously silent, now lowered their heads in genuine contrition. The physical therapist quickly made a furtive sign of the cross, an act of shame and repentance in the face of revealed truth. Claudia collapsed into a nearby chair, her bravado gone, replaced by the naked, agonizing shame of a soul exposed. Tears, not of self-pity, but of true self-recognition, finally came. Amara, seeing her tormentor broken, did not feel triumph. She approached Claudia and knelt slightly, her voice gentle, yet holding the weight of her conviction. "Please, Mrs. Cortez," Amara whispered, her tears now of empathy. "May the Lord touch your heart now as he has touched mine in the fire. My forgiveness is not mine to give. It is only to reflect his." It was the highest victory, the defeat of hatred not by force, but by grace. Victor Cortez watched the exchange, his face softened by something akin to peace. He looked at Amara, and the gaze of the powerful Titan was now simply the gaze of one fellow traveler to another. "Amara," he said, the power of his voice now channeled into profound assurance, "this is where you belong. Never doubt that God chose you to be here in this specific room for this very reason. You were the light in the darkness." Amara smiled through her tears. She looked up again, and the cross of light, still cast upon the bed, seemed brighter. She had not needed to fight, to raise her voice, or to retaliate. All she had to do was stand firm in her faith, allowing her silence to become a more powerful statement than any shouted word. There are times when the Lord is silent, but he is never absent. He does not always intervene immediately, for sometimes he must allow the silence to stretch, allowing the light to enter only when the human heart is finally cracked open by its own sin and ready to receive his profound, defining justice. True faith is not found in loud public declarations, but in the quiet endurance when you are wronged, and the highest victory is not retribution, but the radical, cleansing act of forgiveness.